Hi, and welcome to the session today. I'm delighted to welcome you to another one of our Renaissance series, and we're working with Lepide. Renaissance, we distribute a whole range of cybersecurity and compliance technologies in Ireland, and we're delighted to be joined today with Lepide and to talk about securing Microsoft Copilot and how Lepide can help safeguard your data. And this is an area that we've seen a huge amount of interest in and a lot of conversation and talk about at the moment. We're a lot of people talking about Copilot and the issues and the challenges associated with it. And what we want to try to do today is really help you discover how to strengthen your organization's cybersecurity with Lepide, and specifically in relation to Copilot. A couple of bits of housekeeping. The session today is being recorded. All attendees are muted for the session. You will have an opportunity to ask questions at the end and during the Q&A. So please, what we want to do is to make this as beneficial for you as at all possible. So please raise the questions, send the questions into the chat, or send the questions directly to myself. Sorry, I'm Michael Conway of Renaissance, but send the questions directly to myself. That way we will be able to answer your questions, so make this session much more relevant to you. The session is being recorded for a number of people who are unable to attend, and they've asked to see the session afterwards. And indeed, for many of you, you might find the session interesting, and hopefully you will find the session interesting, and you'd like to share it with people within your organization or colleagues. So you will have that, the opportunity will be there for you to do that, and you will be sent the links to that. Please enter any questions, as I said, into the chat or send directly to myself. And without further ado, what I'm going to do is introduce you to Phil Robinson, who's going to take you through the Lepide session and take you through what Lepide can offer you. So thank you.
Thank you, Michael. Thank you. Yeah, hi guys. I'm Phil. I'm the CMO here at Lepide. Been CMO. I've been working for Lepide for about 10 years now, just going on 10 years. And kind of the agenda for the session today, going to be kind of just giving you a sort of swift overview of who we are, what we do, and then we're going to go into some of the potential risks that generative AI is exposing, and why you might want to pause before you race to adopt generative AI. And then we're going to go through and demonstrate what you can do using the Lepide data security platform to mitigate risks and get your environment prepared for Gen AI rollouts. And just to preface, I'm the marketing guy. I'm not a sales engineer, or you'll have to bear with me maybe when I'm doing my demo. But the platform is simple enough to use from a technical and non-technical perspective. So hopefully we'll get that together. So I'm just going to stop sharing my camera so that everybody can see the slides fully. And we're going to get into just a brief introduction first. So this is essentially, in a sentence, I guess you could call it our mission statement at Lepide. Lepide's mission is to prevent data breaches by delivering simplified data security solutions that enable organizations to secure data, minimize risks, and thrive. So the keyword, obviously the keywords highlighted there are securing data, minimizing risks, thrive, but really that the whole premise here is simplifying. Everything we're trying to do, and the whole reason behind what separates us from our competitors, is that we are simplifying data security. We want organizations to be able to really easily secure their data and minimize their risks so that they can harness the potential of things like generative AI and get the most out of their unstructured data. And what we're seeing, kind of the reason we came into being is that threats to your data can come from any number of sources, and generative AI is only going to speed up those threats and make those threats more intelligent. And fragmented security solutions are, in a word, they're ineffective. They're not only can they be expensive to deploy and integrate and manage, but they can be actually very, very difficult to get the insight that you need out of them as well. And if IT teams are having to manage multiple security solutions, and they're having to have a solution that looks at data and one that looks at Active Directory, and maybe they're delivering different levels of functionality across on-premise and across cloud platforms, naturally vulnerabilities are going to start to creep in, and this will drive up the risk of data breaches. And if you're operating in that kind of environment, it's very unwise that you should throw generative AI into the mix as well. And as we all know, data breaches are, generally speaking, on the rise in both frequency and severity. So I've pulled together a couple of major statistics here that kind of highlight this problem. And I guess there are three things to bring out on this slide. The first being the cost of data breaches. As you see, 4.88 million USD, which is a 10% increase over last year. It's the highest it's ever been, and quite frankly, it's unaffordable for most businesses. So the potential impact of a data breach is often crippling. The second thing to notice is that over 50% of businesses have had a cybersecurity breach or attack in the last 12 months. So there's a favorite phrase, it's not a question of if, but when. And then the graphic on the left side of your screen, the main concern around security looking ahead to next year is just not having the time to manage it. And this often comes because customers don't have the right solutions in place, or the solutions they do have are fragmented, like we were saying before. They can be difficult to manage. So what we need to do is kind of simplify all that, fix that complicated and that lack of time with a simplified and unified solution. And then, I mean, the data security market in terms of vendors, vendors haven't actually done a whole lot to I guess, demystify data security. To the point of view of the average organization, the market and the vendor offerings out there can seem maybe overly complex, or I mean, analysts like Gartner and Forrester, while they're great at what they do, they're introducing new buzzwords and new terminology all the time that add to that level of confusion. Listed some of the most common ones we see. There's often loads of overlap between these things like data access governance, privileged access management, zero trust, plenty of overlap there. And vendors can often claim as well to do everything all at once, which can be a bit disingenuous as well. So the market isn't really serving the underlying customer problem, which is that security teams want simplicity. They want to be able to manage security easily. They want to know that they can protect their unstructured data effectively, and often it can be really difficult to know where to start. So that's where we come in. We have a platform called the Lepide Data Security Platform, which I'll be showing you later on in the session in regards to how we can help you use that platform to prepare your environment for Gen AI. But in general, when we're talking about the platform, this is kind of what separates us from the majority of other vendors on the market. We believe that security teams need to focus on two major things: their identities and their data. And when I'm talking about identity security, I mean, it's often said identity security is the new perimeter security. Fundamentally, if you're going to get breached, whether that's by an insider, a malicious insider, or a compromised user account from a ransomware attack, whatever it may be, it's going to happen through your users, whether that be an Active Directory, it could be Entra ID. Understanding your privileged users, who they are, how they're getting those privileges, and being able to spot when permissions are changing is absolutely critical to maintaining low risk. But on its own, it's not enough. It's got to be combined with data security in order to be able to prevent data breaches in a meaningful way. So it's not enough to understand who your privileged users are, and when those permissions are changing, you need to be able to apply that to sensitive data and user behavior. What are they doing with data? Is their behavior normal? Has their behavior changed suddenly? Or are there a series of events we can see that kind of indicate a cyber attack of some sort? So these are all questions that can only be answered when you look at both of these things in conjunction with one another and not in siloed solutions. So not a lot of security vendors on the market can do this, especially when we're talking about both on-premises and cloud environments and being able to deliver that functionality across both. And ultimately, at a high level, I mean, this is what we're trying to achieve for our customers. This is what we want our customers to feel that we're doing to them. We're helping them to reduce the risk of data breaches first and foremost. When we do that by reducing their threat surface and helping them to manage their ongoing data security in a an efficient, effective, and sometimes even automated way. And then we want to increase the effectiveness of incident response. We want to be able to give intuitive reporting, real-time alerting, live dashboards, everything that makes investigations and response faster, more accurate, simpler. And compliance, a lot of our customers have quite complicated compliance requirements as well. So we want to simplify that as well with predefined reports. We want to use a traditional framework that we can help our customers align to. And then all of that delivers an enhanced return on investment. With Lepide, you're getting fewer resources you need to manage, fewer tools you need to implement, and our intuitive reports, they're tailored for both technical and non-technical users so that you can get quick and meaningful insights, and that really accelerates that return on investment. And then we are using a trusted framework to deliver those outcomes on the previous slide. So I'm sure you're all familiar with that, with this framework. It's one that's been stress tested at organizations of all shapes and sizes, and we really aim to be able to align you with every level of the NIST cybersecurity framework, so that you can essentially align with what is the government recommended framework for data security. And then on this slide, you can see we've been doing this for a while now. We've got over 1,000 very valued, very happy customers, some of which I've pulled out on the screen there, and also some good Gartner reviews as well. You can check them out in your own time. And this is what our data security platform looks like in terms of its makeup. So it's essentially 5 modules at the moment, one of which is in beta, but was released recently. And I'll take you through them quickly just so that it gives context to what we're going to see in the demo later. Lepide Auditor, this is our kind of the beating heart of the platform, really. This is our base layer for all the detailed auditing, reporting, and ingesting all of the events and producing meaningful reports. It essentially does all the heavy lifting. And then Lepide Trust adds a layer on top of that focuses on permissions, helps keep track of who has access to what, how they're getting that access, when is access changing. Lepide Detect is our automated threat detection and response piece as well. Lepide Identify at the bottom, that adds a layer of context to our reports and alerts through our own proprietary discovery and classification technology. And then Lepide Protect is our newest module. As I said, currently in beta. It's going to allow customers to implement zero trust by managing permissions and revoking excessive permissions. So yeah, that's the platform. We'll go through what that looks like when I jump over to my lab. But first things first, we'll have a look at some of the top concerns around generative AI and why there are concerns. And this was a recent survey that I found that Malwarebytes produced. It's focused on ChatGPT, but the concerns are shared across all Gen AI security. And when I'm talking about Gen AI security, I mean the topic of focus on this webinar is Copilot, but really what I'm talking about can be used, is relevant for all generative AI models. So key stat here, 81% are concerned about security risks. So as Gen AI models become increasingly more sophisticated, they're capable of generating content that is kind of indistinguishable almost from content created by humans. And what's worse is that AI doesn't yet have the full ability to distinguish between content that's truthful and content that's not. That's one of the serious concerns. And why that is a concern is because of the spread of misinformation and disinformation. And I mean, Gen AI content, it can be used, it can be designed to deceive even the most skeptical of eyes. I mean, it is, I think, indistinguishable from human-generated content at this point. And the increased reliance on AI-generated content, I mean, among other things, among the security concerns, it could also lead to a decline in, human creativity, critical thinking, as well as the erosion of some of the traditional skills and industries that we're used to. I mean, you can see there, only 12% think that the information produced by ChatGPT is accurate. Lots of concerns about security, and yeah, not many people believing that that these tools are currently a force for good overall. I think these are some of the most notable concerns. I won't go through all of them in detail. We do have on the Lepide website, we have a detailed blog going through each of these individual concerns. But just to sum up on this, I mean, there's a range of security issues that generative AI introduces, primarily around model safety, data security, and compliance. That's kind of the three categories. So model safety can include concerns around bias, around transparency and accountability, all of which require security teams to be able to assess AI model risks and ensure fairness and kind of safeguard those models from tampering. And properly managing model access permissions also helps mitigate misuse and ensure that models follow established guidelines. So data security, another crucial area of concern. AI systems often process sensitive enterprise data in very large volumes. So if you want to maintain data integrity and regulator compliance, you've got to audit all data consumed by AI, classify data types, track data access and data usage. So you've also got misuse of AI in automated social engineering, like phishing attacks. That's also a potential risk, especially if individuals like inadvertently share confidential information through the prompts that they're putting into things like Copilot. And safeguards like encryption and strict access controls, they're necessary levels, I think, that you need to implement to prevent data misuse and leakage. And the potential for misuse is really significant. I mean, AI can create deep fakes or expose intellectual property. There's risk of IP leakage, shadow IT, and as well, AI governance laws like the EU AI Act are emerging at the moment. We don't fully know what the landscape's going to look like for compliance around these tools. So, but it's critical in that way to make sure that you stay compliant, or you at least meet a framework like the NIST cybersecurity framework before you adopt Copilot, so that you don't fall foul of potential emerging regulations. So essentially, it's a proactive approach that's required before you deploy Copilot to make sure you deploy Copilot into a safer environment. So just to sum up really quickly, AI tools like Copilot, but I'm talking about all AI tools here, they can drastically help improve the efficiency and productivity of your employees. I think that's pretty much a known fact. When used correctly, they are brilliant tools, but most organizations simply aren't prepared to deploy these tools right now within their environment because of major concerns around security and privacy of the data. So now let's take a look at what companies can do from a practical standpoint to get your organization closer to being ready for AI. We're going to look at a very, very simple 3-step framework we use with our customers. And I'd say there's essentially 3 things you need to do at a very high level to prepare yourself for Gen AI rollout. And it sounds simple, but they can get quite complex. So first, obviously, you want to identify what your threat surface is. Then you want to take proactive steps to reduce that risk. And then you want to make sure that you are set up in a way that you can detect and respond to threats on an ongoing basis. So by reducing your threat surface, reducing your risk, you essentially are able to deploy AI and be more confident that your data is not going to be misused, that all the data that is going to be ingested by Copilot or whatever it is, you're not going to have loads of users who don't need access to data, who suddenly find that they're able to access data through prompts and all that kind of stuff. So we'll take a look at each of these steps in a bit more detail, and we will jump into a lab as well and just show you what it looks like in the platform. But again, bear with me when I jump over to the platform. I'm not a technical person, so it will be it might be fun. So first step so we're looking at here the first of the 3 principles, identifying your threat surface. And the first step in identifying a threat surface is essentially discovering and classifying data. All the data that AI is going to be able to is going to ingest and then generate for users through prompts. We need to know that, and that's going to be data stored in file server. It could be SharePoint, could be Dropbox, could be anywhere. So let's take a look at what this looks like in the platform. I'm going to jump over to my lab here, and I'm just going to sign in quickly. This is the Lepide data security platform. So you can see the modules we spoke about earlier. The newest module isn't in this particular lab because it's currently been trialed with some of our customers. So you've got Lepide Auditor, Lepide Trust, Lepide Detect, and Lepide Identify here. Lepide Protect, as you can see, coming soon. So for this, for discovering and classifying sensitive data, you need to kind of know where your sensitive data is, what it is, and what makes it sensitive. That at a fundamental level is what you're looking at. So if we go into Lepide Identify, and we're just going to go into a particular report, classified files report, and I'm going to run this report, and this report is running on file server. And you can see we can generate a list of sensitive data. We can see, firstly, the server where the data is found. We can see the file path. And then we can also see what type of content we have. So it could be credit card information. It could be information related to GDPR in the UK, national insurance numbers, for example. And then we can see, obviously, the compliance that it's related to. We have a number of mapping within the platform, so we can filter to look at data specifically specifically related to one particular compliance, for example. And then obviously we can see how much of it we have. And also there are some other values here, risk level, monetary value. We set these for you, but you can play around with these depending on what is most at risk for you. You can say, for example, if you've got a file that you know contains intellectual property, you might want to put that at a very high risk level and very high monetary value. And that just gives us kind of a picture. Once we start running this across some of our other platforms, where we might have sensitive data, the file server, SharePoint, OneDrive, Dropbox, whatever it may be, we can start building a picture of what our environment looks like in terms of what sensitive data we have, like the types of sensitive data we have, the amount of sensitive data by platform or perhaps by risk level even. And then new sensitive data being created all the time. We classify at the point of creation. So any new piece of data that's created will automatically come into these reports and be discovered and classified. So that essentially is the first step. You want to start building a picture of what your sensitive data looks like. And then the second part of identifying your threat surface really is all around understanding who has access to that data. So you want to know who your privileged users are, find out exactly what data they have access to. And then, I mean, once you deploy AI, this is important because once you do deploy Copilot, for example, users are going to get faster access to sensitive data, and they might get access to sensitive data they don't even realize they have access to through prompts they might put in. So it's important to know what users have access to certain data before you go into a project like that. So we go back and we go into Lepide Trust, which is our permissions module. We'll take a look in the reports as well. And maybe a good one to start with is just to see straight up who our admin users are. So these are users who have the keys to the castle. They're very important users. In this particular example, we've got quite a few in here. We probably don't need that many admin users, so you can maybe start to just see who potentially you could remove from your admin groups. We can also see how they're getting their permissions applied. So it might be direct, or it could be indirect via groups, nested. So yeah, you can start seeing immediately who your privileged users are, and that's useful. But a very useful report here is our permissions by object report. And again, we're looking at file server. In this report, we can see what our file server looks like here. We've gone into our financial services and finance folder. And in this top window, we're breaking down all the subfolders and the data within here. And you can actually see that we're starting to pull in the information from Lepide Identify into this. So we can see which files and folders particularly contain sensitive information, what that information is. And then at the bottom here, you can see which of your users have permissions on this folder. And you can see their effective permissions, whether they've got full control or whether they've got specific permissions, and how those permissions are being granted. So you can see how the denied permissions and the allowed permissions are being granted, and then you can see exactly what they have access to, what they are able to do, read, write, modify, create, delete, whatever it may be. And you can start really building a picture of that. And you can go into these in more detail and see through groups how these guys are getting the permissions that they've got. So doing that, you can start to really build a detailed picture of, you find out where your sensitive data is, what's making it sensitive, and then you can go into there and see, okay, who has access to that? Am I comfortable with that person having access to this data, especially if they're going to be able to access this through Copilot? Start building that picture. And then if we move on to reducing risk, so we can investigate, find out all this lovely stuff about our risk, and then now we're ready to kind of start reducing that risk. And there's one major report I want to share with you here. So obviously we've got this permissions by object report. If we go back into here, we've got a similar report, excessive permissions by object. Now, this looks similar at the start in terms of we've got, again, our file server here. We're looking at the same folder, financial services, finance folder. We can see it's slightly different layout in terms of here we're showing the folders and subfolders, and then the sensitive data will contain, we'll put in this window down here. But this is the new bit, this bit here. And this is where we can start to see those same users, but we have red ticks and green ticks. And what those red ticks and green ticks indicate is, okay, they've got that access, they've got that effective permission, but do they need it? And what we're doing here is essentially we're building a picture in the platform of that user behavior. So we're taking a look at that user, what they have access to, and then we're also comparing how they're using their data and have they accessed that folder, for example, in the last 120 days, whatever it may be. If the answer is no, we might chuck a red tick up there and say it's likely that they don't need that level of access if they haven't done that operation in a certain amount of time. And if you get a particular user, I don't think there are any examples here at the moment, but if you get a particular user who has all red ticks, then that's a pretty safe bet that you are going to be able to immediately reduce the level of risk to that folder by getting rid of excessive permissions. That user probably has permissions that we would deem to be excessive. And this is where the new platform Lepide Protect would come in. So we're currently in Lepide Trust, but in Lepide Protect, you'll be able to define policies where if at any point, Kelly Maxwell, for example, this user here, if at any point all of her ticks went red, we could automatically remove her permissions essentially and reduce that level of risk on an automated policy basis. So you can not only can you, is it a one-off exercise of reducing risk, you can maintain that level of low risk. So that's kind of the main area which we can do to lower risk. There are a number of other things we can do. For example, if any data we find, any sensitive data that's available through open shares is obviously a risk that we need to look at as well. If we go into Lepide Auditor as well, we can see perhaps we've got a list of users here with passwords that are set to never expire. That is potential risk. There's also potential non-compliant state. So we want to obviously make sure that our password policies are up to date and that people are rotating their passwords regularly. If somebody has a password that's set to never expire, of course, if that account gets compromised, it's going to stay compromised indefinitely unless you can detect it another way. So just areas where we can start to really make a difference in lowering that risk. And then once we've got ourselves to an acceptable point where we feel like we don't have anybody with excessive permissions and we don't have any sensitive data open to all users through open shares, we don't have users with non-compliant passwords, we don't have any inactive users. Once we feel like we're comfortable, now we're ready to implement Gen AI. We also want to be confident that we can detect and respond to threats quickly and effectively as time goes on. So this could be changes to user behavior, for example. It could be permission changes. Yeah, it could be a number of things. So let's look first at our platform again. Oh, lost it. There we go. And let's go into one of our back-end processes. This is our anomaly analysis. What we're doing essentially is our platform is forever learning what normal behavior of your users looks like in terms of how they're interacting with files and folders and permission change of permissions, how they're using their permissions, all this kind of stuff. We're currently learning and ingesting this information, and then the more we learn over time, the more we'll be able to confidently predict what normal behavior looks like. And then if there are any deviations from normal behavior, we can alert you to do that in real time. So that's I mean, this is useful if you want to go into this and do some manual kind of digging about anomalies and everything. It's very interesting. There's quite a lot of noise in there, so you might want to focus instead on our threat models, which I'll come to in a bit. But other ways you can detect threats using before we get into the threat models and the kind of the automated stuff is just through our dashboards. Really, you might want to spot when you have lots of changes to admin permissions. So, I mean, this is obviously a demo lab. You wouldn't kind of see that kind of spike unless something strange was going on. But if you do see a spike in users with admin permissions, you might want to go in there and check that you've still got that zero trust policy and those permissions aren't excessive. You can keep track of your permissions by day across multiple servers, and a group membership changes as well. That might affect users user permissions. And then if we go into this dashboard as well, any spikes in failed logons, again, that could be a potential brute force attack even. Data being shared externally or internally, as well as any changes in security groups or anything like that. So we can, through our dashboards, these are completely customizable. You can, any one of the hundreds of reports that we've got in here can be put into these kind of dashboards, and you can build a dashboard that reflects what you want to focus on. But the bit I want to show you really in this section is all around our alerts, Lepide Detect. So this is kind of our main threat detection dashboard, and what we do here is we're building predefined threat models and workflows so that the platform ingests all the information from all of these various reports, ties it all together, and then produces alerts or automated response based on things that it detects. So you can automate that threat detection and response, and we'll go into what this looks like. You can see we'll have prefigured a number of alerts here. You might be looking at might want to look at a potential brute force attack. So as I mentioned, a spike in failed logons, or you might want to look at mass delete behaviors or an increased threat surface area. So the missing reports I showed you, you can create a workflow that ties in. Okay, I want to see whether there have been any admin group changes or any changes to permissions that affect sensitive data access and all this kind of stuff, and just stay out of the reports and instead get real-time alerts delivered to you when it happens so that you can investigate as and when. With these threat models, we can run a number of alerts off the back of these. So when the threat model is triggered and it detects something, it's kind of it gives you some options about how you want to, what action you want to take. So you can either receive an email alert and you can go in and investigate the particular anomaly or threat on your own time. It can display in the live feed on the dashboard, which I'll show you in a second. You can also receive an alert to a mobile app. We have a Lepide DSP mobile app where you can get that live feed of alerts coming through, sends you push notifications, and you can actually execute responses from the app as well. And then you can choose to automatically execute a script. So if you spot a brute force attack happening, for example, you might want to add a script onto this, of which we have scripts built into the platform already, to shut down that particular user, or maybe even the server. So you can take really quick action to mitigate your risk. So Copilot is gonna make your environment much riskier, because no matter how effectively you're able to reduce your level of risk before you deploy it, once you do deploy it, it's going to be ingesting all of your sensitive data, and any attacks that come through your users who have mittens to that data. It's going to increase your risk. Now you're going to really want to be able to quickly detect and respond. And then I'll just quickly show you what that dashboard looks like. Once you've built those reports, built those workflows, and those threat models, all of those are predefined, but you can build your own. You can get them to come through here. You can see we've got a live feed of anomalies being detected. We've got alerts by type, responses initiated by names, by criticality. Maybe there are high critical alerts that you want to take a look at. And then you can see all your threat models that are being generated here. So you can keep track of your kind of your threat detection posture, so to speak, from this platform. And that is kind of a very brief, high-level overview of how you might use Lepide to both prepare your environment for Gen AI at the start by identifying your threat surface and reducing the risk, and then from a more ongoing kind of perspective, detecting and responding to threats that might arise once your users are accessing data through Copilot. And then just before I quickly hand it back to Michael, I'm just going to share the final slide with you. There are lots of ways you can evaluate Lepide, depending on what you're looking to do and how urgent your requirement is. You could schedule a personalized demo, and we can take you through your specific use case and help you answer any specific questions you have about how everything works. But if you just want to get kind of your hands on as well, we do have an in-browser demo that goes through some of our kind of most requested use cases, and there is an actual guided walkthrough of how you can use Lepide to prepare your environment for generative AI on that kind of interactive demo, so you can go and see it for yourself. But there are other use cases on there as well, like data access governance, ransomware protection, compliance, any number of things. And then you can also request a free data risk assessment, where we will use our platform to do all the heavy lifting for you and kind of identify what your risks are and give you some advice on how to proceed. And that's a free service that we offer. And our hope is that once we show you what the solution can do and what your risks are and how to fix them, that you'll trust us enough to proceed with us. But there's no commitment, obviously, there. That's a free service that we offer. So I think that is everything I have to go through. Yes, it is. Yeah. So perfect. Michael, I'm going to hand over to you to see if there are any questions.
Thank you very much, Phil. Really appreciate that. It's a whistle-stop tour through scaring people on Copilot. It is very interesting. We're seeing, as Renaissance, we're seeing a lot of conversation and question about Copilot and the risks and challenges and the benefits of its potential use. And I think it's quite interesting. You've highlighted a whole bunch of areas there, and it sounds to me like there are so many possible ways it can be used. Obviously, Copilot can be used from a beneficial point of view, but obviously so many holes that it potentially opens and so many risks out there. It seems to me that at the base level might be somebody saying, well, listen, hey, why don't I get a risk assessment done and find out where I actually am? Because but we definitely see lots of people talking about it. I mean, lots of people going through sort of pilots and tests and trials and all of that as to how they might deploy it. But sorry, that's just my comment. But I have a number of questions here, and if anybody else has any questions, please pass them on to myself or message them to me. Um, a question here is how scalable is Lepide for larger organizations?
Yeah, so I mean, we're highly scalable is the short answer. So a lot of our customers, we have customers of all shapes and sizes, but some of our large customers or customers with really complex kind of environments, so hybrid environments maybe, we can use what we call our functionality orientated architecture. It's quite a fancy term, but essentially we have architecture that's designed uh, for scalability. So we've compared our performance against our competitors, and we in similar environments we outperform our competitors in terms of speed and uptime. So yeah, highly scalable is the answer to that question. But usable for both small and big companies alike.
Yeah, and it's an interesting one because we often find in an Irish context people say, well, how scalable is a solution or whatever it is. And I mean, I think most, I think from what you're saying and what I know about Lepide, it's scalable for pretty much every Irish sized organization without any challenges or issues.
Yeah.
But just yeah, question here about what's the learning curve like for Lepide? Are there any training resources or what sort of opportunities are there for training and learning and how to use technology?
Yeah, so I think the platform is quite intuitive. I think certainly if I'm able to deliver a demo, and I'm not very technical at all, so if I'm able to deliver a demo of the platform that was somewhat coherent, I think, then I think that demonstrates how useful it is. Um, we've designed the reports to be really simple and reduce a lot of the noise, and but we also offer really comprehensive training resources on our website, including for our customers. We have loads of documentation, obviously, and video tutorials and support 24/7 and all this kind of stuff. I think for if you're trying to evaluate the solution at an early stage, that interactive demo is a really good one to do as well, just to get to grips with how the platform feels and how to navigate through the reports. So yeah, I'd try it out for yourself and see how you get on. But from my perspective, definitely, I think a lot more intuitive than some of our competitors. That's for sure.
Yeah, well, that's it's interesting if a marketing person can use it.
Exactly. Yeah, yeah. Anyone
Ultimately,
can.
I don't know. I don't know if I could use it, but that's another matter. But no, I think the thing is that we definitely see that people are trying this, and even when you say, well, how easy is it to use Copilot? How easy to deploy Copilot? I don't think people know really till they start doing it and then seeing how what it is they can do. So
Mm.
it's this and you've gone through a whole range of the flexibility and the options and the things that you can do in there. And I guess. I suppose a sort of a broad question really is do you see people sort of finding multiple additional uses for it when they actually deploy it?
Yeah, I mean, like you say, the focus of today's session's been all around Copilot, but to be honest, the majority of our customers really use our platform primarily as a data protection kind of a data protection solution. So, but really for compliance as well. So you know, I mentioned it on the session. The NIST cybersecurity framework is a really useful framework just to make sure that you're doing the right things and you're adhering to some best practices and you set yourself up in for success. I mean, you can't ever fully stop cyber attacks or data breaches or whatever it is, but you can set yourself up in the right way and using our customers use our platform to help them meet those points of the cybersecurity framework. And but there are plenty of other use cases. And again, I keep plugging this interactive demo, but there are a lot of different use cases to explore on that demo, like how you could use it to specifically detect ransomware, for example, or how you could use it to implement zero trust. Yeah, plenty of use cases.
Okay, and so a question here about interactive, or sorry, interactive. You're talking about the interactive demo, but sorry, data stores. What data stores does Lepide cover?
Well, I'm doing my job if I've got interactive demos seared into your brain. Um, Data stores, yeah, a wide range of data stores on premise and cloud. So we were looking primarily on the demo at file server, and Active Directory, but we also can cover SharePoint, OneDrive, Entra ID as well, and some other some other file stores like the Suni file server, for example, as well. So, a lot of our customers have both on-prem and cloud platforms and operating in kind of hybrid environments. So we're useful in that situation as well. And we're adding new platforms all the time. I think the next platform we've got scheduled to add in our next release is Nutanix, I think, off the top of my head. But yeah, if there isn't a specific data store that's already covered, it's likely it's on the roadmap as well.
Okay, and I guess that brings me to another question here, which is how frequently are updates and new features added to the platform? I know you've talked about the protect feature, which is currently in beta, and you're talking there about additionals, data stores like Nutanix, which will become available at some point in time.
Yeah.
But what is the how frequently are
What's the
updates?
schedule?
What is the sort of the release schedule look like going forward?
Yeah, we aim to release one major release every quarter, and then we do frequent monthly kind of smaller updates as well. But as you mentioned, our last major release happened about 7 or 8 days ago, I think it was, beginning of November, and included that new module of Protect, which is a brand new product for us and all about permissions management and remediation. Before that, we were focusing on Entra ID security and improving that. So every quarter, and yeah, we run regular webinars when it's due, just to take people through the new features as well. So I'm sure you'll hear about any new releases from either the Lepide team or Renaissance.
And in terms of the protect module, what's the timeline on that?
So that's currently in beta phase. You can test it now if you want to start a POC with Lepide. We can take you through it. We can show you what it does and how it works and kind of get it working on your environment. And it's being so you can trial it now. Just it's being trialed on a more kind of one-to-one basis at the moment with our customers, and then sort of over the coming months it'll be more available for the wider market.
Brilliant, yeah. So, and the question here: what's the best way to evaluate Lepide?
So I think the quickest way to evaluate Lepide, if you're still unsure, is that interactive demo. But I would say that by far the most well, the one I would recommend the most is just request a personalized demo or jump on a call with one of us, one of our team, and we'll be able to answer any questions that you have, and any questions around the platform that I wouldn't be able to cover today, and we can tailor a demo to your specific environment and requirements, and say exactly what it will do. So yeah, probably just get one of our experts to give you a proper demo. I'd say something that's not delivered by a marketing person.
Yeah, no, that's fair enough. And I guess it's like the objective of this session is just to bring people a flavor for the use of Lepide, and particularly in a, excuse me, in a Copilot environment. I think from what I know about, from what our experience from a Renaissance point of view has been with Lepide, that it's definitely worth playing with and looking at and exploring the sort of features and functionality that's there, and it can bring a lot of benefits in terms of securing an organization and making an organization a lot more secure in terms of protecting its data. The interactive demo, I think, certainly sounds like a minimal place to start. At least looking at that, looking at the free risk assessment, and indeed getting a personalized demo and getting an evaluation copy and playing with that and looking at that. So what I would do is I'd invite anybody who's on the session, or any organization who's on the session, to contact any of the Renaissance team or the Lepide team, and to organize for that. So if you wish to come back to any of the Renaissance or the Lepide team, and indeed we'll send a follow-up of this session with the link to the recording, so it may be worthwhile going through again, just to, if there's any areas that you just want to refresh yourself, or indeed if you want to share it within your own organization, or indeed outside of the organization, please feel free to do so. I don't have any other questions at this stage, so really what I'd particularly like to do is to thank everybody for attending, and to thank Phil for that. I think a run through of the opportunities and the threats and the challenges, and thank everybody for today, and look forward to following up afterwards. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Michael.